This is Fort Carson Now.
Colorado's Pikes Peak region, site of the U.S. Army's Fort Carson.
So far, all the chances I've had to deal with people here in Colorado Springs, it's been very welcoming. Having been stationed at some other posts and had the opportunity to interact with the public there, it's definitely a lot better here.
The founder of our city, who was William Jackson Palmer, was a general in the Civil War in the Union Army. In fact, he was a Medal of Honor winner in the Civil War, and so our roots go way, way back.
When you reinvest back into your community, that's how you build community. And I can't think of anybody that does it better than our people and our friends from Fort Carson.
That soldier can go off in the harm's way and do our nation's bidding, knowing that their family is going to be taken care of here in the community, and that this community is going to continue to embrace our men and women in uniform and their families.
A look at the best hometown in the Army on this edition of Fort Carson Now. Fort Carson is known as the best hometown in the Army. The climate and terrain make for an ideal training site for members of the U.S. Army's 4th Infantry Division. The mountain post is situated in El Paso County. The welcoming manner of the residents and the appreciative attitude of the soldiers form the basis for the cohesive Army-community relationship between Fort Carson and its neighbors.
Even though we're such a strong military town, we're just a city. We are one city with a lot of different folks from a lot of different backgrounds and professions, and Fort Carson just blends right in perfectly with what we are as a city. We're just so proud to have Fort Carson here.
I really enjoy Colorado Springs. It's probably one of the better posts that I've been to. I think one of the things I enjoy most here is the weather. It's always been nice the whole time I've been here. Being from Iowa, it's very muggy and humid, so it's nice to get away from that.
Colorado Springs is a great place to live, and it's just fortunate that we have Fort Carson right here in Colorado Springs, which makes being a soldier in the United States Army, being a soldier in the 4th Infantry Division, even much more of a rewarding experience because you really love where you live.
Most soldiers I know that come here, at first they're a little nervous, if they've never been to Colorado Springs or our area before. And then once they get into Fort Carson and see all the services we have available both on post and off post, they really like it. And that's why we get a high rate of soldiers, I think, that retire here, because they love the community support, they love the resources that are here, and just the views here in Colorado Springs is gorgeous as well.
Mountains obviously are probably the thing I would point them to start with, but then we've got a lot of local tourist destinations, Seven Falls being one that at Christmas time, if you have a military ID, you get in free.
Top 3 things they should do if they haven't done it before: they should go up to the top of Pikes Peak on a clear day and take into account the beauty of it and see how far they can see. Garden of the Gods is another great tourist attraction. The Olympic Center, the Olympic Training Center, a great place for folks that live in our community to go visit, because they're a big part of our community as well. And then just taking advantage of all the arts and culture that our community has to offer, which is really a hidden secret, I think, for our community.
I did 31 years in the Army myself, and I retired 5 years ago. And when I retired, I was the Command Sergeant Major at Fort Carson. And I've been all over the world and lived in multiple communities, but I have yet to live in a community that was so supporting, so embracing as this community here of Colorado Springs and the Pikes Peak region. Because we are a military community. Not only do we have Fort Carson, we have Peterson Air Force Base, Schriever, Air Force Academy, and Cheyenne Mountain. So we are a military community. We are ingrained in the community, especially when we have 70% of our military families living in the community. They're your next door neighbor. So the onus is on us as citizens in the community to really get to know our neighbors and embrace our neighbors. And this community does it well.
The Army and the soldiers and the families here do so much for us as civilians in our community. And this community is spring-loaded, ready to support the needs that are here at Fort Carson and Peterson and elsewhere. And so when there's a need, this community will step up typically and find a way to fill the gap or to support the requirement. And I think that is one of the reasons why we continually hear that Fort Carson is the best hometown in the Army.
We're just really thankful to have Fort Carson here. You know, it brings us great visibility on the international stage with both military and political leaders and business leaders. Fort Carson generates all kinds of interest from those who want to create defense-related businesses or who already are in that field and want to have a presence close to a military base. So we're very lucky here in Colorado Springs to have Fort Carson as our neighbor and our partner.
Businesses aren't the only ones who want to be close by Fort Carson. It's also a great place to retire.
We have quite a few retirees here. We've got probably 45 to 50% of the state's retiree population here in El Paso County.
I'm a retired Army aviator. I moved out here in 1995. I came out of the Pentagon. Came here as soon as I could.
The Air Force moved me here 22 years ago. We thought Colorado Springs was just a wonderful environment, both to raise our son and to live, and so we've been here ever since.
It's the best place to live. We love the mountains. We came here to ski, and now we stay for the summers.
Over the years, our community has developed a relationship with our military, and we're known throughout the country, really, that Colorado Springs is a military-friendly community. And we've always been that way. And it's when you talk to the military, the feedback we always get is that this is one of the best communities they've ever lived in.
In 1941, Fort Carson was established due to the efforts of several Colorado Springs business and community leaders. Over time, later generations of local leaders have continued to persuade national leaders of the value of the mountain post.
Well, I'm Steve Bach, and I'm the mayor of the city of Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm also a proud veteran of the United States Army Artillery 5th Infantry Division, serving at Fort Carson in 1964 through 66.
A lot of the military people retire here in Colorado Springs, and many of them have been involved either on boards and committees. 3 of our current city council members are retired military. So there's a presence with the military here that's critical to our health and success. That's not only active duty, but our retired individuals as well.
We've had a strong military affairs division for a number of years. In reality, we probably got started back in 1941 when the community got together to help bring Fort Carson here as a training base for the Army for soldiers for World War II. And it's continued since then in helping to grow our military presence and make all of our military feel welcome.
And you know, 70% of Fort Carson soldiers live in the city. Only 30% live on base. So in fact, a lot of us here in the city are directly affiliated with Fort Carson. So it's, I think, a special way that integrates us together. And I just can't say enough about that partnership. And it starts with the Army itself, the leadership in the Army. Major General Joe Anderson currently, for example, is a tremendous advocate for working together.
We were building up, and we already had plans to do some work outside the gates to enhance transportation into Fort Carson. But when it was announced that we were receiving a lot more soldiers, we put on kind of a full court press, countywide, regional-wide. We went up to the state and got them all on board to help us with some transportation needs that we knew we would have. The southern gate, Gate 20, it's not the most southern, but it has now become the busiest gate. And with Fort Carson working on one side of the gate and the state and federal government and the county working on the other side of the gate, we made that work.
The Army's Community Covenant is a formal commitment of support and partnership between state and local communities and soldiers and families of the Army, whether active, Guard, or Reserve. The covenant between Fort Carson and the Front Range communities was reaffirmed at a signing ceremony which included Secretary of the Army John McHugh.
We're always anxious to have communities to step up and to say in a very stylized way that they value the partnership with the Army facility.
We are here today to honor
all members of the military here in Colorado Springs.
On behalf of our city, about 500,000 people here and people throughout the region, I just want to express, from my point of view, how much we respect all of our military and the United States Army.
We will sign the covenant to demonstrate to the community the commitment that the Army and Fort Carson have towards improving and reinforcing an already strong community relationship with our local citizens, all of you.
The strength of soldiers comes from the strength of their families. The strength of families is supported by the strength of the community. The strength of the community comes from the support of employers, educators, civic and business leaders, and its citizens. Therefore, we, the community, are committed to building partnerships that support the strength, resilience, and readiness of soldiers and their families.
That was a fun experience I had a while back with General Anderson, and the Secretary of the Army was here, and it's a tradition, I think, in towns that sponsor or are close to Army bases. It's a covenant to work closely together to build even stronger bonds. General Anderson almost crushed my right hand when he shook my hand, but I made it through that, and we signed that covenant, and it was just a proud day for me to represent the city of Colorado Springs.
We're a very different Army than we were, say, 30 years ago. We're an Army of families. We're largely married, and people want to live where they're wanted, and their families want to be where they feel welcome. And clearly, as you look at the retiree community that's built up around this post, Colorado Springs and the other surrounding communities are just that kind of place.
With Fort Carson, we've worked very closely with them on several of the issues that they've had. We've been very, very supportive of bringing the Combat Aviation Brigade to Fort Carson. Again, not because it's 2,700 soldiers and some sort of an economic impact, but from the fact that the 4th Infantry Division is here, having that Combat Aviation Brigade is really essential to their ability to train the way they're going to fight.
We work with our local media a lot. They're very interested in helping us tell the story about what our soldiers are doing, what the Army is doing on Fort Carson. Well, this is a great community that we live in. There's 70,000 of us here approximately, between uniform-wearing soldiers, DA civilians, and our family members. A lot of folks in the Fort Carson and Colorado Springs community don't understand what's going on inside our gates here at Fort Carson. So the media is very helpful in telling the story of what the Army is all about.
It's a tremendous partnership between Fort Carson and the city of Colorado Springs, has been since the beginning.
Since its founding, Colorado Springs has had a tradition of supporting the military in general and Fort Carson in particular. How the citizens of the Pikes Peak region care for the soldiers and how the Mountain Post gives back to the community when Fort Carson Now returns.
This is Fort Carson Now.
Fort Carson, Colorado, the best hometown in the Army. The Mountain Post accommodates 26,000 active duty military along with their 42,000 family members and 5,800 civilian employees. Over 70% of the soldiers live in the surrounding communities, enrolling 21,000 students in the schools.
A school liaison officer is an Army employee who works for Child and Youth Services that helps transition children in and out of schools in the local school systems. We also help educate the teachers on the military lifestyle and culture. We do workshops and trainings and briefings to soldiers about working with children as well. We also help out with the community. We partner with the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCAs in the region. We work with the city at times on projects as well too.
We're very close to Fort Carson. They are the largest installation we have here, the largest military population with almost 26,000 soldiers and largest land area. So it's important, for us as a community to understand what they're going through, how they're affected by the constant deployments that they've had, and work to support that where we can.
As far as the city, we recognize that we are one of the major providers of services to the people that live within our city. I know the YMCA provides services to the military community within our area, and certainly we provide education to the children of the families that are here in Colorado Springs, and it's something we take great pride in doing.
We work with more than 25 school districts in 50 miles of Fort Carson. So when they come in at first, it's intimidating to them. First of all, they have to decide where they want to live, and then they have to decide where their children are going to go to school.
We conduct and monitor the Homeland Defenders Fund, which is a fund that's been established to support Colorado military personnel, military members, families, and veterans throughout the state of Colorado, to help support their needs that are not filled by government funding. So we're kind of filling the gaps, if you will, between what the Department of Defense can supply in terms of funding and what they cannot. So the Homeland Defenders Fund has been established earlier this year at the request of General Shelton at Air Force Space Command and General Anderson here at Fort Carson. We are supporting wounded warriors through the Eagle Summit Ranch program up in Westfield. We provided funding to the Fallen Heroes Center, I believe it is, here at Fort Carson, the Family Readiness Center. We provided funding for the Army Community Services to increase their food voucher program from $25 to $50. We recently gave a $10,000 grant to ACS for the purpose of funding their emergency child care service. So it's those kinds of things that we've been redoing and funding as we can.
Citizen Soldier Connection, what we're about is our primary purpose is connecting citizens in the community with soldiers here in Fort Carson. You know, this prolonged war has shown that there is a great need for citizens to get to know our soldiers better and their families. And instead of soldiers and families, when soldiers deploy, instead of families packing up and going back home to be a near immediate family member during deployment, we'd like for them to stay right here in the community and have that second shoulder that they can lean on in the community. So it's that partnership between the citizens and the soldiers. In addition to that, every year around Thanksgiving, we host where families in the community open up their homes to host soldiers and their families for Thanksgiving. We live in a time now where less than 1% of our nation is serving in uniform. So in order for citizens to fully understand what it's like to serve and really appreciate what our troops are going through and what we're asking of our troops to do as a nation, this partnership, this connection is critical.
The Homefront Cares has a number of programs, but our primary program at this time is called Grants to Families. And basically we're able to assist active duty deployed families, soldiers, veterans at this time. We're seeing a big shift in soldiers coming home and getting out of the military. We're able to assist them with a basic needs, emergency financial needs, and it's a grant, it's not a loan. We're able to bridge the gap when there is a need for those individuals. We also have a wonderful program called Welcome Home Heroes, and we've been able to, our volunteers have greeted every plane that's come back with deployed soldiers returning back to Colorado Springs, and we get donations from McDonald's, Coke, and Pepsi. We've had a soldier, he was coming back from his 4th deployment, and he said he couldn't wait to get his quarter pounder with cheese because he knew that he'd be back in Colorado Springs and on American soil.
We've been doing the Wounded Warrior program. It's part of our High Hopes for Colorado. We've been doing that for about 4 years now. We thought it'd be an opportunity to give back. Our soldiers are making a lot of sacrifices, more than we've had to make in the past as soldiers and airmen.
We take up soldiers and their family members and take them for flights around Colorado Springs, over the Royal Gorge, over the Garden of the Gods, or other areas around Colorado Springs. In 2011, we flew over 270 soldiers and their family members.
I've been in an airplane a few times. This was nice, just being able to sit up with the pilot and talk with them, not necessarily being able to, having to carry a bunch of equipment or, have to worry about a mission, just go up and relax and view some of the sites here in Colorado Springs. It's really good that the Army's doing that and allowing them to come in here. Also that they're willing to spend their time and money to help out wounded soldiers, give them a chance to get up in the air and just have a chance to do stuff that's not related to Army life necessarily.
Not only does the community help wounded soldiers to recover, the citizens also feel the loss of fallen soldiers.
Over the years, whenever we've had tragic losses of some of our warriors over in either all the way from Desert Storm to currently in Afghanistan, the city grieves whenever we lose some of our soldiers who are based in Fort Carson, because they are a part of our city family.
The residents of Colorado Springs and El Paso County have embraced Fort Carson and its soldiers. The Mountain Post's response, as Fort Carson Now, continues.
This is Fort Carson Now.
Mine was earned off Vietnam in 1968.
Over the South Pacific in 1943.
I got mine in Iraq 2003.
USAA auto insurance is often handed down from generation to generation because it offers a superior level of protection, and because USAA's commitment to serve the military, veterans, and their families is without equal. Begin your legacy. Get an auto insurance quote. USAA. We know what it means to serve.
What I have said to everybody since I've gotten to Colorado Springs, and I've transmitted back to every visitor we've had and every delegation I've had and everybody that wants to listen to me, is what a great community it is. And I'm fortunate to have served in many, many, many posts across the Army, and none of them twice. And I would say that the Colorado Springs community is by far the best support community that I've ever seen in the Army.
The Fort Carson community plays a major role in the partnership with Colorado Springs and its residents.
A lot of people don't know how much Fort Carson and all the soldiers of Fort Carson do for Colorado Springs. 10 years ago, Fort Carson started something called the Adopt a School program, where soldiers on their own time, on their day off, go into area schools to help teachers and help young kids. And it's continued over all that time, and the deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan have interrupted that to some degree, but it has continued. And my wife Susie's working closely with the folks at the 4th Infantry Division to ramp that up even more. We're now involving firefighters and police officers from the city of Colorado Springs side by side with Fort Carson soldiers and going into schools, as well as all kinds of other people here, retired people. So Fort Carson started something 10 years ago that has been sustained in an important way to help young kids in school. And we're now taking along. We're coming on board on that, and we hope to double the number of schools reached.
The Adopt a School program is a wonderful program here on Fort Carson and across the Army. It started more than 10 years ago, and the idea is that soldiers make a difference in the schools and in the community. And they create kind of a partnership agreement to help each other out and to volunteer and spend time reading, tutoring, mentoring the kids. Some of the soldiers do track and field days, and they have a lot of fun with just helping out in the schools. And a lot of the kids look up to the soldiers and realize that soldiers actually can be doctors and lawyers and teachers and mechanics and medics. We're trying to show the community that soldiers are good people too, and especially these children, that way they have something to look up to. And then the children love it because some of these kids do have deployed parents, and so when they see a soldier walk in, it just kind of gives them that warm fuzzy feeling inside of, oh, I remember mom and dad wearing that uniform. And that connection being there, The other thing is for those non-military children, it shows them that compassion and that empathy that our soldiers have inside them for working with the kids.
I just thank Fort Carson for taking the lead on that. That's just one example where we work closely together. I hope you've been down to the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo Pancake Breakfast. Fort Carson serves that breakfast. It's the best pancake breakfast anywhere.
There's a myriad of things that soldiers do for the community that get very, very little recognition, and we're okay with that. We just want to fit in. We help schools, we help cleanup projects, we help mentorship projects, we lend aid to nonprofit organizations, just literally dozens of them. And we want to do that all kind of on a low-key level. We like to develop the personal one-on-one soldier to citizen link because that's really kind of the base of our great relationship with the Colorado Springs community.
When you reinvest back into your community, that's how you build community. And I can't think of anybody that does it better than our people and our friends from Fort Carson, not only just in our city and in our nonprofit, but they do that through our churches and through our schools and through every aspect of our city. They're fully engaged as members of our community.
It's very unique, and it's wonderful, honestly, how Fort Carson, Schriever, Peterson Air Force Base, the Air Force Academy, and the city all work with one another to support the kids, the families, the soldiers, and the people of Colorado Springs.
But really, one of the important things our military provides to us in the community is a diversity aspect of things. Most of them, 75%, live in our community. They don't live on the installation. So when you think about that, and you think about they're active in our churches, they're active in our schools, they're doing community projects, they bring a lot to our community, more than just the economic impact.
This has been a brief look at the relationship between Fort Carson and the Colorado Springs community, a bond that makes Fort Carson the best hometown in the Army.
I think our city continues to try to find more and more ways to let soldiers and their families at Fort Carson know how much we respect them and appreciate them and their sacrifice and their service and our love for them.
This has been Fort Carson Now. Thanks for watching.
This is Fort Carson Now.